You're listening to Relatable with Stephanie Michele, only on LA Talk Radio.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of Relatable. It is the last day of February, and it is 11 a.m. in Los Angeles, California. It's dried up here finally, but if we had some more rain, I wouldn't complain. It was a nice change. Today, we're going to be talking about digital detachment, and I am going to start this topic by sharing something personal that happened to me recently, which you've probably often heard me do at the beginning of the show. So about 3 weeks ago, almost to the date today, I, on a whim, got a text from somebody new in my life, and instead of texting them back, I picked up the phone and called this person. And we ended up having a delightful conversation for like 6 minutes, in which, he said a couple times, "I can't believe you called. I can't believe you called." And it was so refreshing for both of us. And I remember even in the conversation, like I was smiling from ear to ear. Like it was nice for both of us. Flash forward to today, 3 weeks later, I am now in a texting pattern with this person, and to the point where some texts are not even answered. And I started thinking about that, like how could something that caused two people such delight be something that so quickly reverted back to another pattern or behavior that is not causing such delight? Because certainly, you can't really feel a connection via text, and certainly when somebody's not, texting you back, there's all this doubt and like what's really going on. So that's not delightful at all. And so I started thinking about this, and, maybe I've watched too many episodes of Westworld back to back, but I believe that there's just something really awful about how we're conditioned to accept that kind of communication as connection. It's not. Real connection happens via the phone, so at least you hear somebody. You hear the tonality, you know where they're coming from, it's not broken up in little bits and pieces, or certainly it happens in person. And as you heard last week with Mark, we were talking about, as human beings, we are hardwired for connection. We need that. Everybody needs that. Everybody wants that. They might seek it in different ways, but it's something that we really need. So how is it that everything that we're doing is sort of going against that, and it's not delightful, and we're not getting that? Like, I feel sort of brainwashed. I feel a little bit, sold a bill of goods that doesn't work. And it feels like we need some software updates to work back to really accommodating the hardware that's in us for connection. So some of that we're going to talk about today for sure, and why connection's so important. Just there's so much assumptions that happen, for just doing this via text, and, so much worry and implied meaning making that happens when you can't talk to somebody. And I really want to get back to not doing that and having delightful conversations that light me up from ear to ear. So we're going to explore that a little bit. And I thought, a good guest to have on to explore this and really talk about, why are we so attached to our devices and, texting and things like that would be my good friend, Brian Diedrick. And Brian, for a couple of reasons, he's here. So Brian actually, writes a blog about mindful use of digital technology. It's called digitaldetachment.com. Remember that. You're going to want to sign up for that or get his emails after this. He's also worked as a reporter, an editor, and a digital marketer executive for companies including AOL, Nielsen, Northside Media Group, and is currently the director of digital marketing at the Los Angeles-based agency Wingman Advertising, which Brian and I might talk about the weirdest sales call we ever went through Wingman later. He lives in Mar Vista. He has a wife, and he has a young daughter. So that alone qualifies Brian to talk about digital attachment. But I want to share something else about Brian that I found incredibly meaningful and was totally touched by this. And I hope you're not going to get embarrassed by, I'm going to gush a little bit, Brian, before we start talking.
No problem.
So Brian writes a end of the year letter with his Christmas cards. I think you just sent this out, not a Christmas card, right?
A card too.
Card.
Vanity photo shoot included.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
There was beautiful pictures of your family in it. So yes, I did get a card. Now I remember it. So he actually writes a super poetic end of the year letter, and I'm just going to read one paragraph from it. And not only did he write it, he actually wrote a personal note on it that really was meaningful to me. So much went into this, and it was so delightful, and I want to share this with the audience. So this is just one paragraph. In April, Simone is his daughter, took her first plane ride, a 4-hour nonstop from LAX to STL to visit her family in Southern Illinois. We took along about 30 discrete distractions, including a Etch-a-Sketch, Play-Doh, Scotch tape, multiple coloring books, a flashlight, raisins, garbanzo beans, and Post-it notes. Standing in reserve was a nuclear option of the iPad. Simone's innocent eyes have not gazed upon a piece of filmed children's content except by accident from grandparents' insubordination. That was in parentheses. But it never came to that. Simone spent most of the flight making dinosaur gestures and noises as her heroically patient dad sitting a row behind us. So delightful.
The whole flight wasn't delightful.
I know I could kind of read in between the lines, but what impressed me, and of course connected to today's topic, is how many things you listed as distractions that had nothing to do with technology. And I think any parent listening has to be really impressed with this list, and we might have to send them the list after. But yeah, I mean, there's something definitely, even before I knew that you had the blog, I could hear something here about your meaning to like kind of digitally disconnect.
Sure. Yeah, that's a conscious choice, and when you make a choice not to have your 2-year-old have screen time, no filmed content, no staring at the cell phone, you have to resort to the garbanzo bean Post-it note regime pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But I'm here to tell you, for any parents listening, it can work. We've made it so far through 30 months of the child's life, and with only kind of minor eruptions or benefits here and there, no screen time thus far.
That's amazing. So we're probably going to hear more about that. I'm going to ask more about parenting. And one thing that before we really get into our interview that everybody's heard me do with every guest, and I want to do this with you, is there anything that's top of mind right now that you just want to get off your chest before we dive into the topic of digital detachment?
Yeah, truth be told, I was thinking about that, and I've got my grandma on my mind, actually. Huge influence in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Quick story about her. She went back to work after raising her 2 boys, my dad and my uncle. At about the age of 40, started as a teller at her local bank in Southern Illinois. Retires about 5 years ago, number 2 at the bank, senior vice president.
Wow.
Broke a few glass ceilings on the way, force of nature, and just so important in my life. But about a week and a half ago, her best friend passed away, and they lived in 2 units of the same duplex. It's the odd couple that comes to mind.
Yeah.
Only like a couple of older ladies, and in the space of that, her friends passed away. She's moving out of the duplex and going to be moving into assisted living, and whatever else has been going on with me the last week and a half, I keep thinking about that. And my heart is really with Grandma Joanne Diedrich back in Illinois, who I know will handle the whole thing with aplomb, but it can't be easy.
Yeah, that's a huge transition, and there's something. I don't know if our culture, American culture, does a good job at this transition of our elders in life. That. It seems like other cultures do a better job of like bringing them home or bringing them closer to family, but it seems like we sort of push them somewhere where they're alone, and it seems like a big challenge. Or I would understand why you would have feelings around this, because you love your grandmother and you want her to be cared for, and she's making a big move.
Big move. Yeah, I think it's safe to say, like, elder care in this country is kind of a disaster. Having recently been on the opposite side of the transaction for the birth of my daughter at the hospital.
Yeah.
We went to an enlightened Los Angeles hospital with birthing balls and available midwives, and still very medicalized, still, not emphasizing the relationship and more emphasizing I guess the science or the risks, or dare I even say the technology behind it.
Yeah.
To technologize either birth or death, and maybe this is our segue, is that, to your point earlier, let's pay attention to the event at hand and the person in front of you, as opposed to maybe the helpful or cool technology around it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so let's go there then. That is a great segue. So what is digital detachment? What do you mean by digital detachment?
So digital detachment, I do mean something very specific by it. And if you want to think about attitudes towards digital technology as a continuum, from maybe Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber here in his cabin writing a manifesto. I don't know if he used pencil or paper or a typewriter, still analog. Over to somebody like Jeff Jarvis or maybe Seth Godin, that's telling us that technology is just an unmitigated boon to humanity that will solve all our ills and bring us to a brave, new, wonderful world. To me, digital detachment falls, somewhere in the middle of that. I feel like there's a real need to be skeptical about technology and digital technology in particular. On the other hand, it's fantastic. It really has made a ton possible that wouldn't have been possible earlier. Quick example there is, almost every day my daughter and I at breakfast dial up her grandparents on FaceTime.
Yeah.
So something that when I was that age was only in James Bond movies. We just do it over the oatmeal.
Yeah.
So digital detachment, I feel like, is a concession that digital technology isn't going away, nor would you want it to.
Yeah.
But we do need to bring some skepticism or some mindfulness, what have you, to its use. And so not only is detachment alliterative, so it works well for a blog URL, I think detachment in general is a good way to think about our use of technology, because it's an inside job. It's not like the recovery time app to forcibly block you from distractions.
Yeah.
It's not fighting with fire. It's kind of an inner kind of sense that I ought to slow down and really think about what I'm doing here. A last quick example is on my way over from the west side to the studio here. I didn't use a precious Thomas guide to find my way here, although that's thinking about that as maybe an experiment, just to go for a week and only use a Thomas guide for
It would be fun. I love social experiments. We're a big fan on the show.
That's great. Me too.
Yeah.
So, but I did try and bring some detachment to that process. I didn't just mindlessly fire up the Google Maps once I got into the car.
Yeah.
I looked the address of the studio up on my desktop, wrote it down in my notebook with the turns, and said, I think I can take it from there.
Yeah.
So it was a compromise, not Thomas Guide, Unabomber, or Jeff Jarvis, point by point, helpless navigation. Tried to navigate a middle path.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say is like it's maybe unrealistic to think that, well, let's maybe back up. Either one of us are anti-technology, and let's be clear, either one of us are. I mean, we've made careers out of it in digital marketing, so we're not anti-technology. What you're saying is it's here, it keeps advancing. It's just there's somewhere in between. A good practice would be to have a little bit of mindfulness around how you're using it and how much time and space you're taking up on it. Because it to me is not the technology itself, it's some of the things that you're doing on it in place of being curious, working on yourself, having time with family. It's those things that we have to kind of watch and check in on.
That's right. And I think when you say a little bit of mindfulness, that's the operative word.
Yeah.
We're so immersed in it, and the culture so points to that direction, that to push back too hard against it, or to go too far down the continuum, I think can do you a disservice. And to your point, how you're able to operate professionally, or some of this technology truly is time saving.
Yeah.
So, again, you don't want to get rid of it entirely, but maybe just once throughout the day, there's a little action you can do to bring some sanity to it.
There's two things that came up for me when you were talking about that. Is so the pushback. So being who I am and doing this show and caring about what I do, which is connection and conversation, and just being empathetic, being curious with people. I am like dying, like just dying to have like real conversations with people. And especially when someone's new. And so I'm dating right now, and like if I'm interested in you, I want to know about you. I want to ask you questions. And to not have that, like to have like that interface be about text is like, it kills me. It really kills me. So then I find that like, well, do I bring it up? Like, am I going to be this person that's now has this crazy need that nobody else seems to have, because I actually want to have a real conversation? Like, how do you do that? And like, why does that look like pushing? Like, why is that so not normal anymore? I don't know if you're gonna have the answer to this, but like, that's a real challenge for people that like I do have mindfulness. So what I'm telling you, I do have mindfulness around it. And I'm experiencing maybe more people don't. And I really want to have mindfulness with them. And the only way to do that is maybe to ask them to do something that they're not ready to do.
Got a two-part answer there.
Yay, I feel like lay it on me. I'm ready to hear it.
I think at first it can look like pushing, or just the kind of the off-the-wallness or the foreignness of the request can kind of stop people in their tracks and maybe make them nervous or uncomfortable. And that's that.
Yeah.
But, as you say, you're a person that realizes that concept, and once you've pushed past that, there's good stuff there.
Mm-hmm.
And so in my experience, when I talk about digital detachment, or more rarely with the right sort of person, kind of say, hey, what do you think would happen during this lunch if we both silenced our cell phones and put them in our pockets? You'd be surprised how interested people are in doing that. Or when I bring up just the notion of digital detachment, somebody's always got a story about maybe feeling guilty about using the device around their kid, or texting and driving. It's a bit of a hot button topic that once you push past the uncomfortability, people are interested in talking about.
Yeah, I've experienced that too. It's just the habit is far stronger. So even today, I got this like killer new like phone charger, backup battery. It's really well designed. I love it. And I'm not even thinking about it. I took a picture of it, posted it on Instagram, posted it on Facebook. And as I'm writing the text, I'm going, oh, pretty funny. I'm doing a show on digital detachment today. And yet I'm talking about this little device that lets me stay connected, or, gives me extra battery power as I go to my show and go see clients. I'm like, oh my God, mixed feelings.
The marketing people at Apple or Samsung, I'm sure, are delighted with the post. Cataloging.
Yeah, totally. So, I think, and I do feel like, again, maybe I've watched too many issues of Westworld back to back. I do feel it's an issue of programming, that we have habits that we need to look at and address, and then put a new habit in place that is serving us better than, just allowing this just mindless, posting and commenting and not having actual connection.
So, let's talk about Westworld.
Yeah, let's talk about it. Oh my God, my dreams were so weird last night because I think I binged the last 2 episodes together.
Not to be watched before bedtime.
No, do not watch Westworld before bedtime.
Of course, do as I say, not as I do. I watch them all before bedtime.
Yeah, because when else do you have time? Because your daughter's sleeping. Like, when else?
That's right. I've got that 2-hour window to, see Anthony Hopkins manipulate artificial intelligence souls. But that show is kind of, there's an argument that it's our world today kind of taken through to its logical conclusion.
Yeah.
And obviously we're nowhere near that, and I pray that we won't be. But, if you look at what's coming out of Silicon Valley in terms of just device design or habit formation vis-a-vis the use of digital media, there is a conscious effort by some very, very, very smart people to shape our habits, to capture our attention, to mesmerize our eyeballs, if you will. And that's very much by it's not completely by design. 10, 11 years ago, there's no smartphone. Like most stochastic processes, that's what happened to catch on, and now 10 years later, we all use it. There was no grand overarching plan to get us all hooked there. It just kind of happened, and then along the way, there's kind of been more conscious design as to how they might be more beneficial to advertisers or companies, for instance.
Of course.
At any rate, my point is there's mindfulness being brought on the supply end so that we as consumers on the demand side ought to maybe pause and think about that just a little and take back our time for ourselves.
Yeah, and it would be maybe a less hard pill to swallow if it was just one thing. So you just talked about virtual reality, but it's not just one thing. So the thing that really just stands out in my mind is like how big data was used in the election cycle. Now, it has been used since Obama, so I'm not going to say that Trump and the Hillary camps were the first ones to do it. They certainly took it to an extent that we have never seen before, and that extent is, there are things, or there are processes and algorithms that allow people to look at 300 likes, that just, your random likes that you've done on social media, and be able to tell more about you than your spouse. And why that's dangerous is, of course, then they can target specific content, whether it's real or not. We've learned about fake news, unfortunately, last year. Whether it's real or not, to elicit a certain behavior from you, because they now know that they can predict certain behaviors from these 300 likes. So, that's a concern. That's another level of like programming that your mind is going through, whether you realize it or not. And then you've got virtual reality, and then you've got like smartphones and all these things. And so it just becomes, to me, what I'm seeing, it becomes a thing where all of it is sort of working against us. And this is why we need to be smart consumers and go, okay, I can handle that one thing. I got my eye on you, virtual reality, but like, okay, over here, I'm really scrolling too much on Facebook, and I'm getting too much stuff in my consciousness. Maybe I need to stop and take breaks or whatever.
There's a real sense of whack-a-mole about it. And when I was first starting the blog, it kind of crystallized in my mind that I haven't had a television for the last 9 years. And there's a very specific reason for that. It's like a junkie leaving the dope in the house. If there's a television in my home, I will just watch it right down to the most soul-killing infomercial.
Were you binging before binging was a thing, Brian?
I was probably binging there in the womb on my mother's heartbeats, the whole pattern of it. It's no Anthony Hopkins soliloquy with Radiohead over it, but it had to do good enough. Yeah. And so that was a really, obviously a conscious choice and a great development in my life. It opened up a ton of time that I really wasn't even quite conscious of losing. And, I did a lot more reading, did a lot more relating with my spouse. Just a huge net gain. Don't get me wrong, TV is fantastic. I love it. And again, if it's in the house, I'll just watch it. Yeah. But I found running the cost-benefit analysis on that, I was much better off without it. However, there is a giant IMAX screen in our living room on the wall unit, mainly used to turn Spotify on for my daughter so we can dance to her current favorite artist, Benny Goodman, of all people.
Oh, well, at least it's not some like Teletubby song or something that sticks in your head.
I know it's coming from me, so I'm just trying to indoctrinate
that's awesome. I'm
her
Benny Goodman
early.
Yeah.
But that's a real source of energy in the room, and now we can stream anything we want on it, and binging on streaming shows, check. And it's really sucked me back in, like Michael Corleone, Godfather 3 style.
Yeah.
Whether it's my device or the laptop at home or desktop at work, I'm in front of screens all day, and there's a sense with digital detachment that I'd like to now make a similar decision that I did with the TV around the desktop and the laptop and whatever devices are coming down the pike.
So I hope what listeners are watching or the viewing audience is hearing is, so we're not, either one of us are coming from a point, well, this is what you should do as I do, not as I say. Like, we're actually, we're susceptible to this stuff and passionate about it. And so you've tried some things to help detach, right? So you have some tips here that have worked?
I absolutely do.
All right, let's hear some.
Just wanted to make a quick point beforehand that beyond even the TV, which I feel like was the great kind of curse of our parents' generation, and I grew up with horse tranquilizing amounts of TV.
That's funny.
And, on the one hand, it's great. It brings everybody together. On the other hand, Newton Minow, the head of the FCC, was right when he said it's a vast wasteland. It was what it was. It was TV. And before that, there was books, actually, which was the great, disruptive technology of its time.
Mm-hmm.
You had oral tradition before, the ultimate relating storytelling experience. What does the printed word do but put you at a remove from that?
True.
On the other hand, you're able to consume so much more of it and disseminate it so much more widely, which was great for the mass of people. If I had my aristocratic oral tradition, feudal lord lifestyle dialed in, 500 years back, I'd have been disgusted at Gutenberg. To dial it all back in here, it's neither good nor bad. I'm just as susceptible as the next guy. I think maybe even more. I feel like I've got a very addictive personality, and so I was one of the first people to get a smartphone when I worked at AOL in 2006.
Did you ever wait in a line for it? That's we'll know your extent.
I'll just take a very non-Brian Diedrick tone here and say, "Oh hell no!" Never been a technology fanboy.
Oh, okay.
I'll stop short at
Okay.
that.
All right. Good.
Palm did product placements and gave us brand spanking new Palm smartphones to the editors at work.
Yeah.
But anyway, I suppose the audience would like to know maybe kind of what's worked for me and taking a step back from this stuff. So best tip I have is it's behavioral. Leave your smartphone in the car at night when you come home from work.
Oh, that's awesome.
There's an element of if you're on a diet, don't buy the ice cream at the grocery store. Again, if you're a junkie, maybe you want to flush the smack down the toilet. And if you're addicted to your smartphone, which I certainly am, you lock it up and shut away to keep someplace inconvenient.
And maybe if that seems terrifying to you, maybe some baby steps. So, first of all, if you have your phone next to you on your nightstand, that's the most horrific thing that you can do, because, if you wake up in the middle of the night and you're checking it, it's like you're never unplugged. So maybe the first thing is move it out of your room, maybe move it further away, in the house or your apartment, maybe into the garage or the laundry room, and then ultimately get to the car. Like if that sounds terrifying, take some baby steps, right?
Absolutely. And the device out of your bedroom is a great tip. The kind of the thing being, would you really want to bring the ensemble cast of Westworld into your bed at night?
I did last night, actually, and it wasn't good.
There you go.
I had some bad dreams.
No coincidence.
No, I do not even. I mean, I should be at a therapy session right now trying to figure out what the hell went on in my head last night. No.
You bring up a great point, though. I said that's my best tip is put the smartphone in the car. That's not the only tip. Yeah. You may decide to, hey, I'm not going to check email for the next hour, and then an hour and 01 you'll go on again.
Love that tip too. I mean, even as a consultant that is very much here to service clients, and I have family all over in different time zones. Putting it away and having designated time when it's away it's okay. Like nobody, unless you're a doctor and you're on call and you're responsible for somebody's, life or death decisions, like you actually can go without your phone. You really can.
There's a great book about precisely that concept. You're going to love it. It's called Sleeping with Your Smartphone by Leslie Perlow. And she approaches it actually as a consultant. And to do her experiment, she actually convinced Boston Consulting to give her an entire task force to experiment with. And the experiment it just started out one night a week for members of that team where they were going to unplug at 5:30 and no work email allowed.
Yeah.
And which everybody pushed back against, completely freaked out. And of course, by the end of the case study or the end of the book, pretty much the entire Boston office of the operation has adopted those practices. People are logging out 3 and 4 times a week. And they're able to do that because they set expectations with clients and amongst themselves.
Absolutely.
Happiness increased, general sanity increased.
I mean, we wouldn't have Tim Ferriss's book with the 7-hour work.
You increased it by 175%.
Yeah.
I guess Tim's selling the 4-hour work.
4-hour work week.
You missed the 40,000 hours of work you have to put in before just to set that up.
Yeah. Well, but to your point, and I've tested this myself in my own workflow. I know that if a quick decision is not the best decision, and just working off of a to-do list is always not the greatest. But if I allow myself to rest, I usually make better decisions. I'm more strategic. So, getting off the phone, not responding to everything really quickly, there's better work and efficiency and happiness, all of these things. And it is scientific. I'm sorry I don't have hard data right now to back that up, but I have read quite a few things. Tony Schwartz's book, The Way We're Working is Not Working, would be another great example. That really presents evidence that yes, there's a quality, not a quantity thing that we need to focus on.
Yeah, Tony Schwartz is great. This Leslie Perlow I mentioned, and there is a ton of science behind it. Mm-hmm. But what I noticed with in starting digital detachment was there's a lot of material out there that is kind of productivity oriented or social science oriented, and not so much that kind of bridges the gap into the personal
wellness,
or just
more wellness.
Wellness.
Yeah.
Just kind of how am I gonna live with my own head 24 hours a day. I think the one guy I've read recently that does a decent job of bridging that gap is a guy named Cal Newport. And he's got a new book out called Deep Work.
Okay.
And it's essentially just kind of what you said. It's making space for more focused work and consideration that's not just sending reactive emails or bouncing around on social.
All I can think of is Westworld right now. I'm so sorry. But there is meaning to God, hope this is not giving away anything if someone hasn't watched it, but getting
Careful.
back to yourself, the maze analogy, getting back to finding your way to yourself is where you're going to find the most meaning and happiness, whether that's a spiritual thing, a soulful thing. So we can't do that detached to digital content all the time or to digital device. You got to go internal to get to that happiness and really challenge yourself to go, is this my thing? Is this what makes me happy? Is this what I need to do? But that can't be done if you're constantly attached to a device. Right?
It can't, and I think there's kind of two main remedies to that. And again, whether that's a book or just your daily distractions throughout life, you keep having to come back to give yourself space to listen to the internal voice. Mm-hmm. And then you've got to give yourself space to relate to others. And unfortunately, our devices are somewhat diametrically opposed to that goal. At the beginning of Deep Work, Newport tells a story about Carl Jung when he was younger and going toe-to-toe with Freud in the great psychology Oedipal pissing match of the early 20th century. So Jung knew what he was up against, and his whole career would succeed or fail on this kind of battle.
Yeah.
And what does he do? He goes and locks himself away at Bollingen on a lake outside of Zurich, and starts building himself a tower brick by brick that he calls a temenos, which I guess in Latin means like a space apart or a grove. And so Jung built that so that he might listen to the inner voice.
Yeah.
With his whole goal, of course, being the rest of his psychology, that we could relate to each other with the talking cure. Once you're able to clear that aside.
Yeah. It's, it's why meditation is a thing, right? This is another, thing that, do you meditate, or have you tried to meditate, or?
I do, poorly.
Many people that say they try. Many people that try to meditate do it poorly.
But I think it's like most things. It's the failure that counts. A good book on that is Eknath Easwaran, and I'd been a complete failure at meditation for about 4 years, and then I stumbled across this guy's book, which basically is close your eyes and say a set piece prayer or a snippet of text over and over again, and rinse, repeat.
By the way, all the books that Brian's mentioning, I'll be sure to get a list and I'll post it. We'll have a video archive of all the shows on my website coming up soon, so you'll be able to get in touch with these books and read more. I found this on your site, so I want to ask you about this. Another question. What is ABC disorder?
ABC disorder, aimless browsing compulsion.
Oh, how many relate to that?
Feel like that should go in the DSM-7 or whatever update. And I'm certainly a bad sufferer from ABC disorder.
How many times do you find yourself, like, you've been scrolling for a little bit and you're like, I feel terrible. Like, I literally feel terrible. Like especially right now with the news cycle. It's like, why did I just do that? It's like eating like bad fast food.
Well, here's the worst step beyond that. So yeah, you're reading for a while aimlessly. You're like, I feel terrible. Then you proceed to do it for another 10 or 15 minutes.
What's wrong? And maybe I'm hopeful and too leaned into relational connection, but I think that's a sign that we're not spending time on that other side, because if we had more experience like that, like delightful call that I started to talk about at the beginning of the show, if we were conditioned to believe that was a thing that we could have more, we wouldn't do this so much.
The thing is, we're not conditioned. We've got to carve it out for ourselves. Totally. Every force in the culture and around us is pointing us the other way.
Absolutely.
So we really have to claw it back.
Absolutely.
A quick addition on ABC disorder is my other helpful acronym is you can combat that with a DDS attack. So deliberate denial of service.
Deliberate denial of service. That reminds me of, I tend to ask people, or when I'm talking about, like, are your digital habits working? I have a brand called No Text Next that is just like a pledge to stop texting so much as a means for well-being, not necessarily productivity, but well-being in relationships. And my favorite thing to ask is, when in doubt, play it out. Like, if you are wondering when to take a conversation off text, there's two ways to know that you need to get it off text. If you're going, what the fuck? like when you read something and go, like, how am I going to respond to that? Like, if you swear or use any cuss word, and that's for sure a sign to get off text.
Going to remember that rule of thumb. That is a good sign.
And the other one is, if you find yourself like writing something really long, or like being really careful, well, I want to make sure they get this clearly, and like, you're a little worried about how it's going to come across, that's for sure, the time to get it off, so when in doubt, sort of play out the whole scenario, and you usually will find, like, the right thing to do. To take the conversation somewhere else.
That's right. And playing it out, I think maybe 80% of the time leads to not to the immediately reactive text back your expletive solution.
Yeah, absolutely. Or pictures or whatever else you're doing. Like that. I've never done that. No,
of course not.
No, I've never done that. I've never texted any appropriate picture. My parents are listening, so. So what, so we've talked about it, we've struggled with it ourselves, like, with some of the practices and the tips that you've tried. What have you gained from being more detached from your devices and things?
I'd say, well, to speak to the obvious benefits, just in general, I've had a better mood or noticed myself just kind of being demonstrably happier.
Mm-hmm.
On the days when I actually practice digital detachment, it's so easy to slip back into the routine, kind of like your story at the top of the show.
Mm-hmm.
You have this great experience, and you're like, well, this is the way to live.
Yes, I want more. And then,
then I'm back on the wheel, starting out, I don't know, browsing about Trump Russia, and then at the very end of it, I'm looking at why Segway never took off commercially. Great piece, but how did I get there?
Or why people are mad that Casey Affleck won the award. Like I should never read some of those articles.
Yeah, you can go down that route.
Oh my gosh. Now I'm like, did he or didn't he? And like, did I even need to know this? It's just, it's bad. Like, I'm never going to meet the guy, you know.
Probably not, but now there's no taking it back.
It's yeah. I mean, I could have called a friend. I could have called I could have had a conversation with somebody instead of reading that poison.
That's kind of where it can be helpful too, is I've gained a framework for thinking about opportunity cost. So I feel like once you walk through the door of thinking, man, I got to get a grip on my smartphone or my desktop or my episodic TV consumption. Once you walk through that door, it's inevitable that you're going to slide back into bad habits, but there's still a voice in the back of your mind allowing you to be a little more skeptical or mindful of the opportunity cost of what you're doing.
Yeah, I like that. Mindful of the cost. Like, what are you giving up? When you give something your attention, what are you giving up on the other side? I also want to say, like, hopefully that voice is kind. Use a kind voice when you slip up. I
know all about the unkind.
Yeah,
voice.
like, oh, I screwed up. I'm never gonna be able. That's not gonna help you. But you know what? At least I'm trying. I'm aware of this. I have awareness to this. I'm gonna try better tomorrow. But like, that voice needs to be kind, or you're not gonna be able to, try again.
That's right, and I just wanted to give listeners maybe the least prescriptive tip of all that actually involves no action. While you're out, just observe how other people are using their devices or using digital technology. It can be really eye-opening. There's no action on your part required whatsoever, but especially at a restaurant. I really notice it at restaurants. Even well-heeled people during business conversations will be about half there, or families that look very close and tight-knit. If it's a family of 6 at any given time, I swear to you, 2/3 to half of them will be checked out or otherwise engaged with a device as opposed to the people in front of them.
So true. Another thing on that, look closely at people's body language and their posture. I'm going to have someone coming up on the show that's going to talk about it, the damage that we're doing to ourselves and the issues we're going to have later from like this and, walking around, not paying attention. And, so there's all kinds of it. But that is a really good point. Like, walk through, walked in a busy downtown area, a restaurant, and look at it. Are people happy? Like, are they enjoying themselves? What does their body language look like? Are they, do they look like they're hurting themselves? Like, all these things, and the chance that you've been in the same position are very high because we're all getting the same programming right now.
Extremely high.
Yeah.
And when smartphones first came on the scene, being a natural introvert, I thought it was just a gift from God to be able to be at a party where I was uncomfortable and, just
look important.
Look as if I really had something to do. Of course, that posture is long since flown. And besides, I know you would be ashamed of me for doing that. Should go mix with my fellow man.
I hope my voice is kinder and not ashamed, but I would be like, Brian, yeah.
I'd say gently encouraging.
I would say you are a great conversationist, and I know this because I sat next to you on a first class flight to and fro Indiana.
That was a great conversation.
Yeah, and we had a good conversation. So I wouldn't want to rob anybody in the room of that conversation. So I would not want you to be on your phone. So we're gonna change gears a little bit and talk and be a little bit more conversational and just like look what relating looks like. Hello. So there's two things that I try to remind everybody on the show about communication, relating. Is one, at any given time, the circumstances of how you're relating can change. And two, there's always more information in the room. So we've got a really good understanding right now of what Brian's passionate about and why. I think, being a father has kind of helped this, and then, his career. But we can learn a little bit more about Brian and have some fun doing that. So the way we do that on the show here is I just randomly pull a random question from my trusty box of table topics. I never know what's going to happen, and it seems to have a mind of its own lately. So let's. Are you okay doing this? First of all,
Positively.
All right. Oh, good one. Is public nudity beautiful or inappropriate?
It really does have a mind of its own.
It does, right? Let's just go there. It's not a show until it's not a relatable show until we talk about nakedness. It really isn't.
I'd say those aren't mutually exclusive.
Good answer.
It can be both beautiful and completely inappropriate.
True.
And it can be both appropriate and very much, to say it delicately, unpulchritudinous, which I discovered during my 20-year-old abroad trip to Cannes. In the manner of 20-year-old boys. I'll definitely say boys everywhere.
Yeah.
My roommate and I were so excited to go to the nude beach. It was really going to be the culmination of, my kind of slow Midwestern childhood. I've really made it.
Yeah.
So excited. And of course we get there and it's just unbelievable 250-pound pasty white men laying out like beached whales.
Nobody needs to see that.
Nobody needs to see that. Beautiful, or I'm sorry, not beautiful, but appropriate.
But appropriate.
Yes.
All right. Let's see where else we will go. One more. I did this at a dinner party the other night, and we were tearing. We had tears in our eyes. Okay. How much would you pay to be able to slam dunk?
I feel like on the continuum of things I'd pay for, I'm pretty comfortable in my identity as a non-slam dunker.
Should ask you, you're a sport. Are you a sports guy or not?
Oh, of course. That was part of the reason I got rid of the TV. I mean, I watch golf.
Oh God.
I'll watch any sport that's put in front of me. Curling, wrapped.
Oh wow. But there's things that you'd pay that you'd rather pay for than being the ability to slam dunk.
Yeah, I would probably pay more for the ability to have Usain Bolt style speed than Michael Jordan.
And his personality and his zest for life, right? Like, he seems like
amazing.
A happy guy.
Yeah.
Like, what a happy guy. He's like he'd be a great person to have at a dinner party, right? Too. Like when you get.
I'd maybe pay more for that than to have his speed. Just to have
agree.
Usain come to the dinner party and play this game.
I'm right there with you. All right. Well, so we'll stop there on that, and we'll switch gears again on the type of relating that we're doing. So on every show, Brian, I ask people to share what I call a heart swell. And, what it is just something that's like a deep desire, something that you're thinking about. Maybe it's a change that you want to see in the world, or just something that's just really on your mind and it's really touching you. And then try to identify a person that goes alongside that you would like to say something to them. So it could be some sort of commitment or a tribute. Sometimes it's an act of forgiveness or a new goal with this person. And then so I ask you to share that, look right at the camera and share that. And the reason here is, so if it's not evident by now with me doing the show, that I really believe in deep connection and giving people the opportunity to make deep connections. And I think when we share deep, meaningful things, it just raises our ability to do so and kind of raises the level of empathy in the world as we storytell. So, and something that each guest gets to do on the show. How's that sound to you?
Sounds great.
All right. So do you have something in mind or a person in mind already?
I do.
Okay.
And so the format here, you said, is to address
just
the
directly
camera.
at the camera and speak to that person and say whatever you want to say to them.
So as a father to Simone, and I'll address you, Simone, my great desire from day one and still to today is to not or to avoid in any way I can mailing it in as a parent. And I know I'm not going to be able to achieve 100% success there, but I do want to affirm that commitment to you right here, in case you see it on whatever device 10 or 12 years in the future, maybe beam straight to your brain, who knows. But, I do want to affirm that I really want to be present for you as a parent and as your dad, and show you as opposed to tell you that I really value you right now as a human being, not just for what you'll become or the great things you're going to do, or as an adult in training. I value you as a formidable human being right now, and I want to always keep in mind that I'm dealing with an equal human being when I interact with you, whether that's as your dad or as your friend or whatever the case. And I just want to show you, whether it's putting my device away or not being elsewhere, being present, as the cliche goes. Make that commitment to you. Even at 2.5 that I pontificate. So to pontificate a little more, I read a quote from Alison Gopnik, who actually writes on childhood, and she said, a happy childhood is an end in itself. In this case, it's not about the destination or even the journey. It's literally about the present moment. And in as much as I can, I'd like to provide that for you by being a present and attuned and attentive dad. So there you go.
Wow. I hope parents are listening, because what there could be no better heart swell than a father saying something to a daughter and making that kind of commitment. That's pretty amazing, and I hope she does get to see this several times and hear those words. And I look forward to hearing how you live up to it too. Because I know it's like, it hopefully is a thing when you're really, when you commit. You're going to work on it. It will come in different forms, but it's pretty amazing to hear that. Might be one of my favorite heart swells so far. As a daughter, I felt that. Well, awesome. Time has flown by. This was a great show. I really thank you, Brian, for being here. I encourage the listeners to check out digitaldetachment.com. Super easy to find. What you're going to find there is like resources. He's really curated a list of different books to read, different resources, different topics, different articles that he's found. And he's a fantastic writer. So when he writes, too, there's some pretty amazing stuff in it. And I really encourage you to sign up for that, sign up for his list and at least check out Digital Detachment. And he also coaches, too, right? Ryan, you can, if someone needs some help, if you need some guidance on how to get digitally detached, you can contact him through the blog, too.
If you need an accountability partner, don't hesitate to get in touch. We all need it. Super
important accountability partner. All right. Well, that concludes another edition of Relatable. I forgot the name of my show for a minute. See, Westworld. This is what it's done to me. Westworld. I blame Westworld. Thank you, HBO. So a couple things. So I want to issue a challenge that is connected to our show today. There's this great website called 5calls.org, and it's actually a political thing. So it's like meant to, if you're enraged or, want to see change around policy, it's a real simple site to go and find the policy and then find your representative who you need to call and then have script and leave messages, and it takes 5 minutes. Great. So there's one side of that. I encourage you to look it up. But I'm going to issue more of a personal 5-call challenge that has to do with connections. So I'd like everybody to pick somebody that they'd like to feel more connected to and commit to doing 5-minute calls in the next 10 days. 5-minute calls in the next 10 days, okay? I'm committing to do this with my cousin in Michigan, Heather. I know you're listening. We are doing this, and I know you're a mom, but we're going to find the time. We'll have 5 minutes. On these calls, we're going to ask each other questions. I don't know your favorite color, Heather. I need to know your favorite color. I don't know what you like to eat. I kind of know that one, but I don't know things, and let's just ask each other and let's see what happens at the end of those 10 days. So 5 calls, tell me, hashtag it 5 calls. Let me know. Do it. I want to hear what happens for after having this like new sense of connection. I'd love to hear if you get to do it with somebody too. So that's the assignment until next week. Of course, tweet me about it. Try it. Tweet me about it at Love More Now, or reach me on Instagram at Relate with Steph. As always, we do have a public shared experience event coming up. I think the next one is March 12th, Sunday, March 12th. We do live, like, feel-good relating exercises at these things. They keep getting more amazing. I refuse to let anybody leave that doesn't feel this, like, incredible sense of upliftedness because they've just connected with people. It's deep sharing, but it's also tips to have, like, difficult conversations. So I'd love to meet you guys. So come out to that. You can find out more information on my site, stephaniemichele.com, or look it up, PSC on Eventbrite or Facebook. And I should tell you about next week's guest. This is going to be a great show. I will have a lovely couple. Justin and Nikki E are going to be my guests. They are going to be teaching me about things like trans fluid and transgender and things that me as a white girl from Michigan doesn't have a lot of experience with. And I might ask some difficult questions, but we're going to be respectfully curious with each other. And I can't wait to meet them. I've talked to them. I just cannot wait to meet them. We're going to have a fun time learning some things and breaking down some stereotypes and really relating. So look forward to that show. And until then, happy relating, and we'll see you next Tuesday.
You're listening to Relatable with Stephanie Michele, only on LA Talk Radio.